The turbocharged, all-wheel drive, rally racer we've all grown to know and love is dead. Rest in peace, STI. We all dreamt of owning a dynamic, exciting, hyper-capable car, and we've been spoiled for choice. You've got the gravel-flinging Focus RS, the brand-spanking new Toyota GR Corolla, the apex-splitting Hyundai Veloster N, and up until recently, the STI. The one in your garage, not the other one. However, there's one car that is better than all of them, and it survived the test of time, and now, finally, has the chops to fill the void the STI left behind. This is one of the most important hot hatches ever, the one that started it all, distilled to its ultimate form. It's the rowdiest, wildest, the fastest, the Golf R. Let's kick it into overdrive with the Volkswagen Golf R. The VW Golf R, the even quicker, tighter, more hardcore all-wheel drive version of the daddy, the Golf GTI. When VW rolled the GTI into showrooms, the automotive world changed forever. For the first time, the words fun and front-wheel drive could be smashed together, and it wasn't just a marketing gimmick. See, before the GTI, virtually all fun cars were either big, powerful, rear-wheel drive muscle cars, or lightweight, nimble little roadsters and coupes. With the GTI, you could have it all. It was practical because it was a hatchback. It was fun to drive because it made nearly 100 horsepower. And it was economical because it was a 1.8-liter four-cylinder. It had cool tartan seats and sportier suspension and brakes, and even a few little exterior tweaks to make it stand out. It came at a perfect time. Launched in Europe in 1975, but when it was introduced here in America in 1982, we were still reeling from the fuel crisis. We weren't building anything like it. We didn't have a proper grasp on even just a good economy car, let alone one that was fun to drive. The first car, the Mark I, made such a splash that VW decided to keep building new versions, and they still are today. Now, we'll do an episode on the GTI one of these days, but this video is about the Golf R. And for that, we've got to move up through the timeline a bit, all the way to the Mark IV generation VW. When Volkswagen built the Mark IV generation GTI, they set out to change what the VW brand meant across the globe. This fourth generation VW sort of invented an entirely new category of car. A luxury economy car. Offered with things like automatic wipers and heated seats and even auto climate control. And the most luxurious trim of them all was the GLX. Fully loaded and came standard with the 2.8-liter VR6. It was already the best all-around hot hatch on the market. But then, the boys in Wolfsburg went a bit mad. They took the all-new 3.2-liter VR6 and shoehorned it in. Then they added the all-wheel drive system used on the Audi TT, racier seats, better suspension, bigger brakes, and more aggressive bodywork. The very first Volkswagen R model was born. 241 horsepower, 236 pound-feet of torque, all-wheel drive, and here in America, a 6-speed manual transmission was the only gearbox of choice. With this first R model, the R32, because 3.2-liter VR6, there was a lot to love. But the Mark IV generation Golf was coming to an end. Enter the Mark V R32, entirely new from the ground up. This time, the car would be offered with the award-winning double-clutch gearbox only, making it complete the sprint to 60 in 5.5 seconds. Down over half a second over the previous car. In the rest of the world, you could still get a 6-speed, so don't worry if you already bought the t-shirt. But nowadays, when it seems like every hatch has some form of double-clutch gearbox, remember, the Golf was just way ahead of the class. That's just how mid-2000s VW was. They were crazy. They'd steal from Audi and Lamborghini and just make these insane little cars. They even made a W12 Golf with the engine in the rear. I mean, it never made it to production, but man, can you imagine how fun that thing would be to drive? Still, can't go wrong with the VR6, which is easily just one of the best sounding engines ever built. I used to just sit and rev mine and listen to it for hours. It's a shame VW killed the VR6 in the Golf anyway, with the introduction of the Mark VI in 2008. The good news is that as 2009 hit, they introduced a new, not R32, because it wasn't a 3.2 liter anymore, but simply Golf R. So don't cry for the VR6. The Mark VI got the awesome 2-liter FSI 4-banger, complete with direct injection and a turbocharger. Strangely, the Mark VI R used a beefed up version of the Mark V belt drive 2-liter, and not the updated chain drive unit in the regular GTI. All good things as it turns out, because those early chain drive TSI engines had a few major problems that the one in the R simply didn't. And it made over 250 horsepower. Not only was that even more power to all four wheels than the 6-cylinder, but it got better gas mileage, meaning the most practical hot hatch got more practical. And the 4-pot was a lot lighter, which made the car even more fun to drive. The Mark VI R came to the States in 2012, and you could only get it as a 6-speed manual, which is cool. Not saying the double clutch transmission is bad, it's a technical marvel, and it's actually quicker than the manual. But it's always nice to have a 3-pedal option. Too bad they brought it over just as the Mark VI was finishing up though. I know, right? At least the Mark VII Golf was right around the corner. It had a bigger variable geometry turbo, a totally overhauled valve train, and the exhaust manifold was now cast right into the cylinder head. All that makes it good for bumping against 300 horsepower. Which is super respectable. Oh, and it was now riding on the MKV platform, meaning it was even lighter, stiffer, and safer. Volkswagen was crushing it, especially since the competition was low. You had like the Focus ST, which would eat transmissions, and the US didn't have a Type R yet. Here in the States, we don't get any of the awesome hot hatches from the French, so the only real competitor was the WRX, I guess. Sort of different markets though. Vaping tuner kids bought Subarus. People who worked hard and hit the tracks on the weekend bought Golf Rs. The dual clutch transmission got upgraded to a 7-speed along the way, and the Golf R could reliably hit 60 miles per hour in under 5 seconds. And that's pretty goddamn fast. Buy an off-the-shelf tune though, and with no extra parts whatsoever, you're throwing down over 330 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. Add an intercooler, intake, and exhaust, you're approaching supercar performance. But remember how I said it didn't have much competition? Well, that was all about to change with the Focus RS, an all-wheel drive WRX stomping machine from Ford, and the new, first time in the US, Civic Type R. VW must have felt a little scared because they started developing a sort of super Golf R, the Golf R 400, standing for 400 horsepower. And then they got caught cheating on emissions tests. There was this whole big thing. I was working for the VW group at the time, and let me tell you, it was a huge mess. So VW didn't really do anything for a while. We got a Mark 7.5 Golf R, which had a little more power, which, okay. And then they announced the new Mark 8 Golf at the end of 2019. And that's what we have now, with them finally making an R version like this year. They had us worried because VW made it sound like they weren't gonna do it. Fortunately, they did, and it's fast. In fact, it kind of blows the competition out of the water. You can still get it with the 6-speed manual. You get 315 horsepower and drift mode. Push a button and the car goes from a canyon carving masterpiece to a parking lot Unmobile. It got crazy new torque vectoring diffs and 18-inch frickin' brakes. Most of the cars I've ever owned don't even have 18-inch wheels. See, the new R is all about that ring time. And I know, you can take the James May stance and not be impressed by Nürburgring times, but I still think it's really impressive. It's also one of the best looking hot hatches on the market, if you ask me, which you did because you clicked the video. Few downsides to the new car. The interior, well, let's just say it's not my favorite. I don't like all the haptic touch buttons and all the piano black plastic. I don't like the heater controls and I don't care for the new gear selector. But those things aside, the new car is absolutely brilliant. Now, like in all these overdrive videos, there's always the warning that this might be the last Golf R to use a real engine instead of RC car power. But at least we know we'll be able to enjoy it for a few more years. And honestly, I think you should. As for the STI, well, no car can truly replace it, but its spirit lives on in cars like the Golf R. And that wraps it up for today. Which Golf's your favorite? Let me know. And let me know you like VW by hitting the like button. I love to see it. This has been Overdrive. You're watching Ideal. My name is Trav, and I'll see you guys next week.